Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. This is the thriveLIFE podcast with Ror Alexander. Today I am with VP of One Championship. Well, what's your actual title?
I'm just a VP.
VP.
That's simple.
Okay, awesome. And what I want to talk to you about is, I don't actually want to talk about MMA specifically today, but you have a very interesting talk that you've done. And I believe you started with a TEDx talk in Chicago in 2014. And it was about failure,
Yeah.
right? And fearing to fail, I believe is what it was about. What is it about failure that you find so interesting?
Well, it's the talk. So the talk that I titled it originally, "How to Be a Loser," and growing up as a young kid, basically you're told things like don't be a sore loser, or it's not whether you win or lose, but how you play the game. And those are pretty much like you're kind of told to keep that in mind, but you're not really given any kind of tools of what happens when you actually do lose, because especially with the Western mindset, you're just expected to win all the time. And I opened up my talk yesterday with that quote from Michael Jordan, which is kind of one of those quotes that takes you by surprise. I didn't realize that when you put it in perspective that he lost 300 games, missed 9,000 shots, missed 26 game-winning shots and stuff like that when the game was on the line. And because you think of a guy like Michael Jordan and his legacy, and all you think about is the fact that he's a winner. He's one of the greatest players that ever played the game of basketball. So the talk really is about keeping things in mind of we're all going to lose or face some sort of failure at some point in our life, and it's inevitable if your bar is set high enough. And two, the talk is really about when that does happen to you. If you have some sort of failure, if you have some sort of loss, be it in an athletic competition, in your quote unquote real life or whatever it may be, how do you deal with that? Do you have the tools to actually deal with that loss, use that loss to extract what you need from it, and then move forward in a productive manner? And
what kind of tools then? What kind of tools do you use for that?
Well, I started off yesterday, and just the first thing that I talked about was one is that failure is inevitable, talking about Michael Jordan. And what ends up happening is that subconsciously, as humans, we know that failing is inevitable. Every time for example, if I go to the gym and I'm going to train and I say, okay, you know what, this week I want to be able to do 5 pull-ups. Well, if I set my bar at 5 pull-ups, I'm going to succeed because I know I can do 5 pull-ups. All right, next week I want to be able to do 10 pull-ups. I'm still going to succeed. Next week I want to be able to do 15. I'm still going to succeed, and so on and so forth. But at some point in time, if I keep raising that number, this time I want to be able to do 58 pull-ups. Now I'm going to experience failure. I know this. I know that I can't do that many pull-ups. I know that I'm going to experience failure. So I've set the bar high enough that I'm going to experience failure. And what I have to be able to do is say, okay, and this is just a simple task, or a simple example, because something like this, people experience this all the time. But I need to take that and be able to say, okay, now, why did I fail with this number of pull-ups? Let me really sit down and think about this. Why did I fail? Maybe part of the reason why I failed is because I didn't sleep well the night before. Maybe I didn't eat properly before the workout. I didn't have the energy that I need. Maybe I'm just not strong enough, and I need to go back to the drawing board and actually figure that out and make myself stronger. And so you start assessing the problem, and you do that. The thing is that once you understand that failure at some point in time, when you raise the bar high enough, is inevitable, then your fear of failure, it will start to diminish. It has to diminish. Otherwise, you put this constant pressure on yourself of I must succeed. I must succeed. I like to succeed. I don't like to lose. Nobody does. Yeah. But I have to realize that if I'm going to play this game of competition of whatever that is in my life, that at some point in time, I am not going to succeed. It's going to happen, and I'm going to miss the mark. And I need to not be afraid of that so much that it doesn't derail me from actually being successful. So that's just one tool is the awareness of all that and how to move forward with it.
Okay. What would you say then, if thinking about failure, what would you say is, when you look back, you could say, what would you share as one of your biggest failures? Anything comfortable you're sharing in that? Something where you've kind of cried and you had to really, incorporate everything to move on?
Shoot. Are we talking about personal, or
it could be personal. It could be anything. It could be personal, or it could be sport.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll stick to sport related stuff.
Okay.
One of the things that would come to mind for any fans listening or anything like that is me losing my title fight.
Okay.
Now, what I was talking about in the talk yesterday is that when it comes to failure, when it comes to life in general, people tend to think of life as these sequential events that can, in their mind, like you kind of somewhat disconnect them. Like life is these like sequential events that are disconnected.
Yeah.
This morning I had breakfast. This afternoon I will
You
have
can
lunch.
compartmentalize.
Yeah, and it's, well, you know, this morning I did have breakfast, but that breakfast fueled me until I got hungry again, until I needed lunch. So they're really not disconnected events, even though they appear to be, but more or less life is like this stream of water that's flowing.
Mhm.
I had breakfast, and then I had an overflow of calories at that point in time. Those calories are fading off until I need to eat lunch, and then I'm going to eat lunch again. And so they are connected events. And losing or failure, it's the same way. In my fight, I can watch the tape of my fight and specifically see the exact moment when I'd lost that fight. But really what happened was, if you take a step back, like during the training camp that I had for that fight, one of the things that I disregarded in the training camp was clinch training.
Okay.
And so it wasn't just one specific moment in the fight. It was the fact that I had ignored this, and this stream of connected events that I'm talking about was a day-to-day process that eventually led to that one moment where you can say, that's it right there. But it wasn't it. It was a stream of events that led up to that.
Gotcha. Okay. What do you think why do people fear failure so much? What is it that scares people about failure?
It's the pressure. I believe primarily it's the pressure that you put on yourself. Going back to the Michael Jordan example that I was talking about, yesterday I mentioned seeing a picture of Michael Jordan, like where he's got his hand like here on his head, and he has all his championship rings on his fingers. Have you seen this picture of him before?
I have.
Yeah. Okay. So, and you have this idea in your head of like, well, that's what a winner looks like, and how you're remembered, or how you remember yourself, or the importance you place on things is based on where you put the value. Like a guy like Michael Jordan could sit around and say, "Man, I lost 26 games in my career. Like I'm a loser." Like he could think, his perspective could be that way. Yeah, but he chooses not to. He chooses to focus on the victories that he had and the accomplishments, and that's how his legacy is remembered. And what ends up happening is, because a legacy is remembered that way, people tend to focus on just that half of a person.
Yeah.
They remember somebody like that as a champion, as a winner. They forget, like, hey, this guy actually, he missed shots, he lost games, he lost game-winning shots. Like, people were depending on him at times when he failed.
Yeah, because nobody ever talks about it.
Exactly. So, but what happens is that because we remember only the winning portion of somebody's legacy, then what happens is that's the standard that we try to live up to. We put ourselves up to that standard. I'm guilty of this in my career.
Yeah.
That you think, I would love to have finished my career undefeated and defended my title more.
Although
than
that
anybody else.
knockout of Chuck Liddell with a broken hand was very impressive.
Yes. Technically, it was a broken arm.
All right, broken arm.
It was a bigger bone. Come on, that's even more difficult.
Yeah, broken arm. Sorry, my bad. But that was pretty impressive.
But no, when like that's the thing, is that because you basically focus in on just the winning aspect of like somebody, these legacies, like this is the standard that you hold yourself up to. And every time I lose, people would always ask me a question, like ask me questions about like, the first time you fought on the big stage, like were you more nervous with the TV cameras and all the people in the audience? And I was like, no, I wasn't, because I just had this discussion with a gentleman earlier this morning. Because my first fight of my career, even though there were probably only 200 people and at that place watching, and nobody ever really saw that was the most important fight of my career at the time for me.
Yeah. Understood.
And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if I'm fighting in front of 200 people or 200 million people globally. Like it doesn't matter. What matters is that when I lose, I have to go home and I have to, at some point in time, I have to face the man in the mirror. That's what I always say. I have to look at myself and I have to say, today you came up short. And you have to face like why. Now, when I've gone into a camp and I've given 100% and I performed the best I could and I just got beaten by a better man, then great. But when suddenly you can say, well, you know what, I didn't win because of A, B, and C reasons, then that's, you have to face that. Like you have to face that, live up to that and say, yeah, this is why. And you can make excuses and you can lie to everybody else or whatever, but you're the person that you have to face, and that's why you hold yourself to that standard.
Yeah, for sure. So, one of the things that I want to talk to about really quickly too is just a lot of people feel that they're always waiting for the perfect situation. When you started your career in fighting, if I recall correctly, you started just with YouTube videos and stuff. Did you not? Yeah, just started training. So, I mean, a lot of people say...
Not YouTube videos, because this is the day before YouTube existed.
What was it then exactly?
VHS tapes.
Oh, VHS tapes.
Yeah.
So, everybody's always like, oh, the situation's not perfect, or, this isn't there, I don't have the right mats, or, I don't have the right equipment to get in shape right now. And you started off with VHS tapes.
Well,
so.
Yeah, I always tell people, listen, this is just a basic concept in life, and I always tell people, like, look, it's a decision-making process. Any decision that you want to do, and I'm not saying that I'm not guilty of like waiting for the perfect moment in other situations in my life and whatnot, but in any decision-making process that you're going to do, you have three options, all right? Mm-hmm. You have your best option, which is good decision, pointing out the obvious here. Your next best option is bad decision. Mm-hmm. And in the worst option that you can possibly have is indecision, because indecision is technically it's a decision. Yeah. It's if you've ever been driving down the highway before and it's like, wait a minute, should I take this exit or not? Should I take this exit or not? Because you don't know where you're going, and so you're like, I don't know what to do, and then you decide to stay on the highway.
And you go by it.
And then you've made a decision. Yeah. That was indecision that forced you into a decision, and your decision ultimately was staying on the highway. Yeah. And what happens when people sit and they're like, I'm not sure what to do now. I just used an example where time is of the essence, and you don't have, But this same kind of philosophy you will apply to life decisions, where you can actually sit back and think about things. And people will put off the thinking about it because they don't want to face those kind of decisions. It's not something I want to think about. I don't need to deal with the stress or whatever the reasons may be. Mm-hmm. And so you keep putting it off. Like, well, if I don't have to make a decision, then I'm okay. I don't want to have to make a decision on this. But essentially, what you're doing is indecision is a decision itself.
Just making
and it's the worst possible case.
So either make a good decision, make a bad decision, but just make one.
Yeah, exactly. Because indecision will ultimately always lead to the worst possible outcome.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, I would like to thank you for this. Like I was saying, your TEDx video is definitely worth watching. Checking that on YouTube. I've seen it. Guys, if you have a chance, definitely go and check it. What was the exact title of it?
I think it's called How to Be a Loser.
Yeah, How to Be a Loser.
And actually, it's a shame you weren't at the summit, because I believe that the version I did yesterday here at the summit was slightly different than the one I did at TEDx, but
it was a little
better version as well.
Yeah, but no, that's why I was thinking about a different podcast originally, but then after your talk yesterday, I was just like, no, I got to go back to the original plan, which was which was talking about, because a successful person, you hear so many people, it's always talking about success. I want to hear somebody talk about failure and why it's important, because I know Richard Branson, he's got some very famous quotes on failure too. And a lot of the top CEOs, the biggest thing they'll talk about is their failures, which I think is more interesting at the end of the day.
Oh, absolutely. I've gotten to a point in my life where I don't believe that you can talk about success without talking about failure. And for anybody, like if you were ever to listen to a motivational talk or something like that, and somebody's like talking to you about like how to be successful, and they don't, and it's like they give you all these things on how to be successful, but they don't talk about failure. Let me tell you something. That talk on how to be successful is completely useless.
Yeah, no, I say what you do is the best talks is listening to all the things that people did wrong.
Yep.
So that's the best talks. I did this wrong, this one. Finally, this worked.
That's it.
Yeah. Cool. Well, where can people find out more about you and follow you? Yeah, I know you're on Twitter. You're quite active on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm at Rich Franklin on Twitter. I think on Facebook my handle is Rich.
Yeah.
Ace Franklin.
Would it be mostly Twitter then?
Yeah, I do Twitter and Facebook. But
okay.
But I'll tell you what, go to richfranklin.com. That's my website.
Yeah.
And I don't have a lot of information on my website because we just live in a day of social media anymore. Like a website's just almost like a holding page anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
But you can go to my website, and then I have the links to my Twitter and my Facebook there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you. Very special thanks to Rich Franklin for joining us, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.